Hey, so we finally meet, Raji and I. It's been a long time coming. We've been planning this for exactly 1 week. No, 2 weeks. But it's been a long 2 weeks, and we're looking forward to this. So the reason why we're doing this is because I think both of us felt that as writers, we needed to speak to each other, understand a little bit of what's happening in our heads, more than in our lives, actually. But then
Yes.
they're both intertwined. So Raji is someone I know for close to about 22, 23 years now. We were colleagues together in the same agency many years ago. And honestly, one of the best writers I have ever seen in my life. From an advertising perspective, definitely, though she will have a counter to that because I think she was on her vein at that time, I think. But even in her vein, she was better than people who were waxing eloquent at that time. And then, of course, subsequently, she's been an amazing writer in various different fields, journalism, then now as a playwright. She's a brilliant poet. Her Instagram feed is a work of art. I think anyone who has to look at, poetry and look at, I wouldn't classify it as poetry. I really call it writing of from the heart, and that could be anything. It could be prose poetry. So she's beautifully, writes beautifully, especially food. I don't know what's with her food posts. I mean, she cooks and then she puts stuff on a plate, and then you feel like eating the plate because the way she describes even a small, simple chutney that she's made will make you salivate. Honestly, so this is someone I have great, immense respect for as a human being, as a professional, and somebody who inspires, I think, not just me, but pretty much anyone who has read, because you really get an insight into her mind, and it's a beautiful journey being with her. And I consider it to be a pilgrimage, honestly. Whenever I read her posts, I've not been very frequent on Instagram these days, but trust me, it's like going to a temple in the morning or a religious place in the morning. Making a coconut. बहुत अच्छा लगता है उसका writing. So Rajiv, we're doing this because this is needed. Yes. So yes, now you can introduce this fool on the screen. Lay it on.
Shantesh and I, like you mentioned, we started at the same agency network almost 22 years back. What I've been most in awe of, Shantesh, I have to confess it here, is your wit. I haven't known too many people in life who are so witty. So when I count people who write with wit and intelligence, I've always held you in great admiration. I was a bit envious of you too when we were working together because you could get it so right. Your ability to condense thoughts in a few words was so much superior than mine. I think that is because we used to sit, next to each other and used to discuss it. And I always felt great admiration for that you were able to sum it all up, and dissect the whole thing and get to what needs to be said a lot faster than most of us did. At least surely what I could do at that point in time. I liked that a lot about you. I still like that minimalism in your writing, which I increasingly I see in the way, and I like your sense of observation, how you observe a lot more. So Shantesh is a strategy and media consultant for 25 plus years now. Am I right? Yes, I've worked on more than 500 brands, which intimidates me when I say it, because I know the kind of challenges we create.
99 of those are made up in my mind, but it's okay.
Yes. And he is the Chief Creative Officer and founder, co-founder or founder?
It's like a small shop that we run.
Yes, but yes. So he's Dubai-based. He's been, and aside from what he does as a media consultant, he's a great photographer, and we get to see that a lot on Instagram. He has his own photo series which keeps happening on Instagram, and I've been privy to it only recently. I never knew that side of Santesh's personality, that he loved the visual medium so much.
Yeah, I do actually.
Yes. quite an intimidating quizzer, from what I know.
That I know.
Knows
That I can
way too
unabashedly say on the quiz.
yes,
No holds barred.
knows way too much about cricket and literature and basically the world. He knows too much about it. If there is something that needs to be uh, researched and plumbed to the depths, he will go and do it. And so
That's more
that is
than people will sleep now.
no, no, no.
I will
I have
start getting
if
marriage
you get
proposals. I will start. I cannot take
no,
any.
no. I have to say this because you have painted a very, very. I'm happy that you see me that way. But yes, I think like what you said, at the beginning, it's important to know how we see each other, to know what the strengths we see in each other as writers, because I think we all have very individual different strengths, and it's important to know what the other person sees when we are in eternity. So I think this talk to me is about that. Yes.
Also, I think the reason why I did this is because it's an interesting thing to do because we knew each other from 2 decades ago.
Right.
It was in India, which was very different. We were much
Yes.
younger at that time, so obviously
Right.
we had not gone very far ahead in our writing journey. And I think writing journey
Right.
is so much, sort of linked to your own personal journey in life.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it was a very different time. You weren't married. I was just getting married.
Yes. Yes.
Responsibility. We were footloose and fancy free for lack of a better phrase.
Yes. Yes.
Probably more optimistic, probably more realist. I mean, realism has come in now, but probably more
Yes.
optimistic. And I just wanted to see now that we are both in our sort of, I don't know what to call it anymore.
We both are in our 40s and we are facing midlife
life has
crisis.
moved on, and the world has moved on, and younger writers are there, and people are suddenly talking metaverse and bullshit and all that. And I was getting intimidated sometimes. I said, where am I in my writing journey? So I wanted to know from a perspective of another writer who's been through almost the same journey.
Yes.
कहाँ है हम लोग और कहाँ हमारी writing जा रही है? And there is this, where are we at this point in time mentally, as writers, as people, and sort of just calibrate our thinking. So
where we stand basically.
Really, thank you for the opportunity to meet firstly, and I think I'm going to put the first question on to you.
Yes, please.
So okay, so this is from a personal point of view. Whenever I write, all this while, all these years or whatever I've written, for good or bad, if I have not had many opportunities to write for female characters, number one, even for male consumers, I have never worked on products which have been really geared towards females, right? So, even when I start writing my own stuff, I start writing from a male perspective.
Right.
So I have found that when you did Rockstar, for example, and for people who don't know, Raji did her first script in Malayalam for a film called Rockstar. I haven't seen it, admittedly, but I heard a lot about it. I've read about it, and I know that she was very excited, and she still is. You can see the smile on her face. I think it was based from a male perspective, right? It was based on a male character, right? From the point of view of a male character.
I think, I think the central part of the story was anchored to the male's choice. It is from a female's perspective, is the way I see it. See how differently we see it, even as men and women. That is interesting. That is interesting because I have had what you just said, Shanti. A lot of my male friends have said that to me. That you've written from the male perspective.
Correct. Because you was a rock star, right? I mean, it's like people.
Yes, it's about the. Yes.
Like so when I was doing a script writing workshop, we did an interesting exercise on Sholay many years back. Where they said, if you look at Sholay, you look at it from either Thakur's perspective. It is Thakur's story.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's his life. He initiates the story. And then the two characters are his like Ram and Lakshman types, right?
Yes.
But technically, if you look at it from, is it Basanti's story, for example? If it were to be Basanti's story, the whole perspective changes, right?
Yes.
Or if you were to write the Ramayana from Sita's perspective, for example, right?
Yes.
Because if she was not kidnapped, the whole story would not technically be set in motion. So that's what fascinated me, saying that, you as somebody who's so strident in her feminism, and I'm not using it in a sexist manner. Your
No, I know what
writing
you mean.
comes from a very core aspect of being a strong woman. So when
Yes,
you write from a for a male perspective or from a male perspective, I really
exactly.
want to know how you go through this process, or what you find
Um,
interesting in the process.
I, you know, Shanti, Shantesh, while we always talk about women being so layered and so complex, their minds and hearts, and it's never so easy to understand how women think. Um, I I feel the wider world out there still knows. I think women are more transparent with their emotions, you know, because we are allowed to cry, we are allowed to, you know, we are allowed to show our flaws a little more, what is understood as flaws.
Right.
The world is okay with us showing our flaws,
Mm.
with our vulnerabilities, with our insecurities. Okay.
Right.
I felt that even as all my years in journalism, uh, 12 years by then when I started writing Rockstar, and whenever I would talk to um, male celebrities or personalities versus how I talk to women when I'm interviewing them, it would, I had to negotiate a different landmine each time,
Mm.
with men,
Right.
minefield each time with men versus with women.
Right.
So I felt that, while writing Rockstar, there is the emotionality of men which is not so easily obvious.
Right.
And the mind, definitely, and my own conditioning as a woman of
Mm.
what I have seen of men, what I've chosen to see of men, what I understand as masculinity and manliness. Some of that will get projected when I'm writing,
Correct.
right? And it is quite a challenge to write about men for me as a woman. It's
Right.
not easy because I am somewhere, even if I want to show different facets of a man, I tend to slip into men being stoic or men being aggressive or men being raging.
Right.
I have a hard time going into a man's heart.
Mm. Very, very.
That is because because so much is not revealed. Even like if I look, I think for men probably it is difficult as much as it is for a woman writer.
Right.
But I feel at least so much of what I feel is revealed. So
Correct.
much of what I feel, if say if I've had a relationship and that has kind of shattered me, I'm not saying that all women are going to be openly about that.
Correct.
Okay. So
Correct.
many of them will be a lot more private. But my face easily shows what I feel. There is a higher chance of me revealing what I feel uh, in a public setting or with friends, or so, and there won't be any judgment on that,
Right.
right? No one's going to sit on judgment when I cry or when I rage or when I talk about someone. But with men, I feel what a relationship does to them, say the end of a relationship or something that has had,
I'm
come with
sorry.
emotional consequence. It doesn't, you can't see it because
It's
they just want to, so many of them just want to shrug their shoulders up because they do want to reveal it.
correct.
They'll be they'll be judged mostly by their peers,
Correct.
by men around them. By women, they'll be judged.
Correct.
So there is so much of judgment there.
True.
While I think, the judgment for men and women now, I think is different that way. Women cannot come and talk about, their sexuality and sexual needs and ambition very openly, what they want to do and what they want to achieve, probably because they'll be considered too manly
Mm.
while doing that.
Mm.
It is, on the other hand, while men can do that freely enough,
Correct. True.
assert what they feel about that, but
Absolutely.
their ambition or what they want. But men are not allowed to come out and say what they really, maybe they just want to give up their jobs and it should be okay to give up their jobs. They maybe don't want to go to work, maybe they just want to be sitting at home and
True.
not doing much. Maybe they want to be a house husband, so many of them, but they cannot say it.
True.
They want to, or maybe something is really breaking, having them come apart, but they cannot say it. they
Right.
cannot show it. So
Right.
I think
Weakness, sign of
that is,
weakness, sign of weakness. That's the
so
problem.
for me, just peeling that apart is quite a challenge because, and look around me. I mean, I see, all the male characters in my life, like my brother, my friends, my husband, my work associates. I look around and I don't see any of them. I mean, even if my partner feels a certain way about a situation, it may be hurting him badly, he will choose not to show it,
Right.
or he will probably try to couch all of that in some cynicism, sarcasm, hurtful words, what he feels versus what he says,
Correct.
what he's expected to say. So I think that is a challenge for women as well.
Very interesting.
Thinking from so it has been quite a struggle with, even with Rockstar. I've only one film down, so
You have
I'm
many, I'm
not.
sure, because that is, I think, honestly,
but
it's right up your
but
street.
thank you. I just feel that, that is a challenge while writing about men. I have to be more observant about what
Correct.
they're saying and what they want to say.
Right.
You have to read a lot between the lines.
Right.
And you have to really be observant and
So
not cloud it with your own.
there's a sort of a parallel question to this. Very interesting. Parallel question being, see, when you, well, at least when I write advertising, right? Of course, you're supposed to sort of get into the shoes of the consumer and understand that consumer or whatever. We try a little bit
Right,
to deep dive, but eventually
right.
there is a generalization, correct? So you are talking
Yes,
to a certain sect or demographic or whatever,
right,
certain mindset. You can't really
right,
speak so deep into one consumer. Uh,
right,
right? You talk about it, everyone talks about it, but eventually you can't, right? But when you're
right.
writing a book, for example, when you're writing a movie, a script, for example, a film script, or even something, you are getting more intimate with that
Yeah,
character, right?
right.
So how much of it is you versus how much of it is the life of your character? So
Yeah,
even if you were writing a female character, right? Because
right,
you will
right.
tend to borrow and dig into your own persona, your own way of looking at
Yes,
things, and then
yes.
somewhere you're suddenly now looking at this 45-year-old
Expertise.
woman in some other part of the world with some other problem. So where do
Yes.
you sort of get this sort of blend, or
Uh,
how do you get into her life if you've not lived her life, especially?
one, you have to first do a bit of research about the general outline of that character. Then,
Right,
like for instance, I'm a writer, but if I'm going to write about the woman CEO,
right,
say,
right,
or a woman convict,
right,
then I have to read up a lot on their lives and then try and understand what that kind of life will exact on their personal lives, besides what is, what we see of them
right,
in their professional, or the life that they are, the role that they're cast in our heads.
right.
So I try to understand that wherever possible. I try to speak to, wherever possible. It's not always possible, but wherever possible, I would like to. But I tried speaking to people about, those challenges that they face, or try to understand how they think, uh, you know, uh, how they manage their time, and how, what is their relationship with, uh, you know, their ambition versus their personal goals, how they try to juggle between that.
Nice.
Does their ambition, I mean, if it is a CEO, for instance, does that weigh very heavily, and there are times when they question their own choice. So I like getting into that space, but yes, like you said, uh, so much of me will percolate into that
That's
character's
true. I
personality,
think
and
it,
that is,
this is my feeling.
it
You
will
will
it
bring
will
us. Yeah,
it will how I think or how I respond, I'll have to keep stepping back each time and ask myself, which I don't do consciously, I have to admit
right.
that. But sometimes you've written it like 60% down and you're wondering whether, oh, is that too much of me, or is that how I'm thinking that I'm making the character think?
So
So
you're
I,
writing. Sorry, Raji. I'm
yeah,
just cutting in the middle.
yeah, please.
So when you wrote the film, did you also write the dialogues?
I did, but that film had a very interesting process. I wrote the screenplay and in English, because it's a
Uh-huh.
Malayalam film,
Correct.
and then we sat with. So what you said about, we sat with the Malayalam writer,
Hmm.
uh, and we worked out the dialogues,
Hmm.
and there were key inputs in the screenplay too at that time, because he told me, Rajshri, this is not how a man would what a man would do, or even a certain gesture or a certain action. And I saw now in retrospect, I wondered, what were those changes necessary? At that time, I did wonder. But now I can understand why they felt those changes were important, because I was working with a male writer
Hmm.
who had a better grip on, no, a man wouldn't behave like this, or a man shouldn't behave like this.
Right.
Okay, so that writer too. I'm working with a male director
Right.
who's thinking a man will not do this, a man should not do this. So there is that war which among inside them too,
Correct.
when they were contributing about what the character should do and what the character will do.
And
So
how much did you sort of let into them
change.
what they were saying, or
A lot changed actually. I initially, in fact, there was, I would say, a character study, not plot wise.
Hmm.
There was almost a 180-degree shift in what I
Wow.
had imagined. Yes, I have to admit
Your,
that. Because,
I mean,
yes,
so to yours.
not the story,
Okay.
not the story as much. The story at its center remained the same. The plot remained the same, but the characters changed completely. I had gone in with a woman character who's very effervescent, and a male character who's very, uh, who's very sorted,
Hmm.
who's very disciplined. All of that.
Right.
But when I wrote that out and I presented it to them, of course, because of commercial reasons, what works, kind of cast we chose, all of that also did have an influence on what ultimately happened.
Right.
But a lot of inputs of how men
Right.
think and because the characters changed initially. It was a different kind of, he was a photographer, then he became a musician. It was
Right.
not a musician to start with when I wrote it.
True.
So when they made him a musician, then you have a shift. Okay, a male photographer versus a male musician has a different shift. A lifestyle has a different shift, and then how a male musician, what would he do?
Hmm.
How would kind of life he led? Also, I have to admit that we tend to fall into stereotypes. Both me and the others were working with me. So we
Correct.
are programmed to look at musicians a certain way. That all musicians will, because of the lives they lead, they will have, they would probably respond to a situation. So that is there. But there were quite a few changes. I have to admit to that. There were quite a few changes.
And what was the response you received for the film? I mean, from
Not
box office.
not
Well, that's
no.
irrelevant.
Box office wise, you know that it didn't do well.
Doesn't matter. That's in your hand.
Yeah, no, it didn't do well, and that kind of played heavily on my mind for the next 4 years. I stopped wanting to write films till 2019 or so. I decided that this is it for me. I don't want to go in and burn people's money like this and all of that.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's when a
I
film
know,
flops, it's the writer's
I know,
problem. When a film succeeds,
I
it's
know,
the
I
actors.
know.
I don't.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
but what happened interestingly with the film Sandesh, is that it didn't do well at that time on screen,
Yes, it
but it found an afterlife on YouTube.
exactly
And now increasingly so,
right.
it's coming close to 1 million views on YouTube now.
Fantastic.
There are people who wrote to me about 3 years, and especially a lot in the very early 20s segment,
Hmm.
wrote to me saying that, we really loved it. They wrote to me, on Facebook and all of that, and they messaged me, some of them, and that was, that helped a lot for me
Yeah.
to get back into it. But
You
yeah,
know,
um,
like you wrote this. I think you started what in 2017, 2018 writing this, or 2016?
no. I started this in 2013.
Oh wow, long time.
2013, yeah.
And it
I was still with Femina at that time,
got
and
shot. I mean, it got released around 2019.
2015.
Oh, 57
2015.
years. It seems like yesterday. I don't know. For some reason, I thought it's just
Yeah,
4 years old.
7 years. Yeah, it is 2013. I wrote it.
Right.
Approached the director.
Right.
Fortunately for me, he went into it right away. He said, "I'm very keen on making this," and few months down the line, then I decided to opt out of Femina because it was a full-time role. So I
Right.
had to get out and move to Bangalore, because that is where the production house is
Right.
based and the team is based. So I had to sit with them.
But I
So
know,
yeah,
honestly, after seeing the kind of scripts that are getting greenlighted for OTT today, and
Yeah.
especially Malayalam cinema, because I'm
Yes.
after,
Yes.
I'll be honest, after Fahad Fazil has come into my life around 5 years ago, I
Yeah.
have watched Malayalam cinema with a vengeance. And a
Yes.
lot of Malayali friends here own production, so they keep plying me with ye dekho, wo dekho, you know.
Yeah.
I love the cinema there. I saw this film called Bhutakalam recently,
Yes.
with
Yes. I
Revati and
haven't seen it, but I've heard
Shalini,
it's really good.
beautifully done again. So I was like, you know, this is your moment, honestly, if you want to write, not just yours, for any good writer, you know, to get into
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
studio at this time.
It's a very interesting time. It is a
Right,
very interesting time in
right,
cinema on the whole,
right.
and especially in Malayalam cinema.
Correct.
None of us had foreseen this
Yeah,
probably,
this
the
kind
way things will shift, because this was the most low profile of the regional industries actually, of the four southern states.
yes, in terms of maybe box office, but I think very high profile in terms of the creativity, the technique.
Yes, but
Uh,
in terms of box office,
yeah,
and
yeah,
what is
that's
known of their actors, the kind of stories, largely to the rest of India, yes, Madame cinema was not
no, but I look. I think
for
a
that.
lot of us are looking. I especially am looking forward to seeing. You're also working on your second, right?
I am working on my, in
Twitter
fact,
birdie.
I've finished writing the first draft of the
Fantastic,
screenplay and have
fantastic.
presented it to the director. Now they're proposing
Yeah.
it for producer. So
Second,
let's see.
second one will be like.
I'm good.
You'll
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for that
No,
to
no, no.
see the
I really
title.
think you should be writing more for the screen, because I think your ability to write characters, because of the strength that you have as a writer, you're
Thank you.
naturally inclined. Book, so definitely I'll come to that point later, because that is something I'm going to whack you with the book. But
Yeah,
I think
I know
film is
you've been
something.
telling me.
Yeah, film is something.
Thank
So great. I mean, yeah. Now you can throw your question to me and
Yes,
try to answer.
yes.
What else?
Um,
And
um,
I will cover this. I will put some light on my face. Don't worry. There's very little light on my face right now. So
yeah,
I'm
that's
very fair,
okay.
as you can see. So I'm looking even fairer.
I've got all this light falling on my
Yeah,
face.
the light is behind me right now, unfortunately. I will use
So,
Photoshop.
um,
Please don't worry.
please do it. But okay, so my first question to you,
Hmm.
Shantesh. In fact, the questions I have for you are very little about what you do
Ah,
and what people know you as, as this design consultant. Because I see you as someone who um, is pushing yourself uh, a lot from the depths when I see your writing now.
hmm.
I have to admit, I haven't read or seen much of your creative work, though you've done so much, and
Yeah,
I'm not too aware
that's
of it.
the
But
typical advertising.
social media has shown me another side of Shantesh the writer, which is
Which
very
reminds me, I need
intriguing.
to populate my Instagram. I've archived everything because
Yes.
I've left
You
the
have
building.
to.
I need to come
You
back
have
and
to.
get it again.
You
Uh,
have,
People
because
will
when I
go and
say
check my
this, and
Instagram. They
yeah,
won't see.
people will want to go and check, and they will. So I'm very, very intrigued by, the things you put up in your post, the conversations you put up in your posts,
Right.
and I like that they are not they're not trying to preach anything. They're just making us see things that we're not seeing.
Right.
Uh, the mundane, the profound, which is coming across as mundane.
Right.
Uh, I like, and again, what I especially like is the brevity with which you're doing it. You just choose, this great economy of words. So I want to understand. So when I'm asking you, whatever questions I'm asking you next, it
Sure.
is about, um, do you the, the agony of being a writer,
Right.
get about the technique and skill of it.
Right.
Do you think that you, as a writer, even when you're writing with wit, sometimes it's about a lot of pain, I feel,
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, uh, I want to understand, how do you think that sorrow for us writers
Hmm.
uh, get us to bring out our best selves,
Hmm.
makes our pen sharper,
Hmm.
maybe more sensitive, more empathetic? Or do you think joy fuels the writing process for you a lot more?
Interesting.
What is it?
Okay, so I can only speak from my perspective.
Yes.
I think sometimes writing and writers tend to romanticize the pain and the agony. Uh,
Yes.
we tend to say that, दुखी होना चाहिए लिखने के लिए, दारू पीना चाहिए लिखने के लिए, वो
Mm.
गम में से स्याही निकलती है types, which is typically
Right.
the jhola wala old writer
Yes.
mentality which we have carried from the time we were middle class, right?
Right.
We have
Right.
moved out of that. This is what I feel. Number one, the world has moved out of that. For me personally, I just write when I feel something.
Right.
Only weapon I have against anything in this world is words, right? So
Right.
whether I'm happy, whether I'm ecstatic, whether I'm in the depths of my abyss, I write, because that is
Right.
my only pressure cooker ki seeti. And
Right.
I wouldn't say that's a pressure cooker. It is a seeti. वो निकल जाती है seeti. So
Yes. Very
sometimes
nicely
I'm,
described.
I'm watching cricket and I'm just absolutely joyous at seeing this 19-year-old hitting a six. And I
Yeah.
say, look at that guy, unbridled, enthusiasm. And I just feel like writing about it. Sometimes I'm absolutely down and out in a financial sense or in a spiritual sense or in a mental sense. And I pour it out in words.
Right.
So for me, so my perspective is that I find great joy in writing, even if it comes from sorrow. Uh,
Right.
I think that is the easiest way I look at writing. I find joy when writing about sorrow, even if I'm sorrowful, because that gives me joy.
Yes.
I get joy when I'm joyful and I write. So both ways, the process is leading to some little amount of happiness in my head. Um,
Right.
so that itself is a great way of putting myself out there.
Yes.
That's one part of it. The
Yes.
second part of it is I actually was greatly influenced by my grandmom. So my dad's mom, she was with us. I spent my childhood, my dad died when he was 12. She passed away when I was about 22. But she had a great influence on my life. And because my mom and dad were both working, my sister
Right.
was much older than me. So
Right.
my childhood was literally spent with my grandmother. Uh,
Okay.
and she was an incredible storyteller, incredible.
Okay. Okay.
In fact, have met very rarely, I would without doubt say she's one of the most creative people I've met in my life. And probably
Okay.
she's known in my community as being an extremely creative person. She would
Okay.
crochet, she would do stuffed animals, she would paint, she would write, she would sing. She was a great cook. Uh, she didn't learn English. She got married in at the age of 12
Right.
to my grandfather, who was about 16 at that time, and he was in
Okay.
the railways, and they spent about 7 years apart. And
Okay.
she didn't know a word of English, and
Okay.
she was we speak Konkani at home, so she knew a little
Right.
bit of. She didn't know script technically. This
Right.
was like we're talking in the 1910s, right? Almost
Right.
100 years ago. And my
Yeah.
grandfather used to actually write letters to her from wherever he was posted in the
Uh-huh.
days, and he would force her to write back to him in whatever
Okay.
way she could, whether it was broken.
Okay.
And at the end of
Oh,
the,
that is
I
very
have the
beautiful.
letters, Raji. I still have those letters kept at home in Bombay
Wow.
in this most beautiful handwriting. And
Oh,
I've seen the progression of those letters. So there are letters dated
wow.
1922, for example, where if you read it, it's English which is extremely basic. Stuff like even "love you" has been written in half like Hindi, like Lipi, and then the U is YOU. And then
Oh,
I've seen her progression in the 60s when she wrote a letter to him on their 50th anniversary, and it was written as good as a writer could write. So,
oh, wow.
so for me, when her storytelling, she told me a lot of stuff. In fact, my imagination came largely due to her. Because she really बोलते हैं ना दादी माँ की कहानियाँ, it becomes a sort of a cliche, but
Yeah.
for me it was reality. So very joyful person. She lived up to 87. She
Okay.
lost her son, I mean my father, very early when she was, it was a big dhakka for her,
Right.
but she's pulled herself out and she's till the last breath. I have never seen a more joyful person. So for me, I think I put her always in front of me to say that this is a lady who went through so much more than I did.
Yes.
She
Yes.
she took care literally of 40 people at one time. You know,
Wow.
there were
Wow.
40
Okay.
people living in a house, various cousins, uncles.
Okay.
She's seen I don't know how many generations grow up in front of her, and She
That's
did.
marvelous.
Yeah. So for me,
Really?
that, so the woman, when I came to that question of, oddly, I've never written from a woman's perspective, but if I were to ever think of a woman's character, I think I'll dip into that lady, because uh, so when you say ना joy and sorrow, मेरे को वही लगता है कि मैं I am a extremely I have two moods. Either I'm very happy or I'm very sad. There's no bit in between for me.
Right.
I'm really, there is no middle path for me. I've never had a middle path in my life. So
Right.
I think I'm self-deprecatory as a writer. I'm a very self-deprecatory person. For me,
Right.
I have this
Yes.
wicked sense of sarcasm, which
Yes.
puts off some people, but it also
Right.
gives me my wit. It also gives me my.
Yes.
So today when I write, of course, and the best part is I have two brains. So and that doesn't mean that I have a high IQ. Sorry, two brains in the sense that I have to put on an advertising hat, which is a very,
Yes.
very sharply focused, stressful hat to put on, right? Because
Right.
I'm still at it even after 25 years. So it's the
Yes.
same every day, right? You get up, there's a
Yes.
deadline, you've got to push.
Right.
So I take that hat off very willingly and gladly in my personal life. And I
Right.
almost like shed that heavy skin, and put it off and say, that's it, I'm done with that selling for the day. And I think that allows me to then bring that joy or sorrow to my own personal writing.
Right.
And because in advertising you need to, you have to walk. You don't need to dress up in a certain way, at least in creative. I don't have to wear suits or whatever, even now. But you got to present yourself in a certain way, right?
Yes.
It tends to be a little more of a, you try to do it's like what Eliot said, right? You're preparing a face to meet the faces that you meet.
Right.
It happens with that in advertising. So in my personal life, as you said, I observe more, because then the gaze is off me. In advertising, I'm in the goldfish, right? I'm goldfish in the bowl.
Very interesting.
Clients are looking at me, my team is looking at me, my Shanti, deliver. So I'm that goldfish. The moment I get out of that advertising space, now I'm this shark in the ocean. Or I'm this whale, I'm this blue whale. This ocean is there, there's a lot of krills everywhere, and all I have to do is float around and open my mouth and swallow something. So then I love that outward gaze. And that's when I think I discovered a little more of that. You can call it sensitive, you can call it observant, you can call it curious. But एक word है हिंदी में, मेरे को बहुत अच्छा लगता है वो word. मेरे को एक ठहराव आता है. I feel this real ठहराव when I walk and I see a guy sipping tea, or if I see two friends talking, or I see a child on the road. I suddenly then feel that, oh wow. So I saw this guy that day sitting, in the road, and he looked down and out, downbeat. And my immediate instinct was, there was a beautiful photograph there, and my immediate instinct was to click.
Right.
And then I realized, he doesn't know I'm clicking, but I'm still intruding in his private space. And there's that in-between phase where you have, Shanti, don't do it, don't. It's You're really entering that private space, right? You have to sometimes as creators, without, of course, affecting that person.
Right.
It's like, how Raghurai would enter such scenes of joy and sorrow. You'd go to cremation grounds and shoot. He shot the Bhopal gas tragedy, that photo which still remains with us, right? Of that kid who was buried. And it's probably the defining image of any photography done in India for a long time. How do you do that without impeding on, even if the person is dead, you're still impeding on a certain part of that person's life, right? So I think as observers, you tend to be better creators. This is what I feel, rather than going internally. Internally, that you're restricting yourself to your mind and your heart. Your emotion. And your mood at that point in time. Whereas looking outwardly, you're actually interacting with different people. You're interacting with their spaces. And that's what I find very fascinating, because in that space you find stories, and in that space you find your own voice, I feel.
Right.
Honestly, it's not about sorrow and joy for me. For me, like I said, it's just that old song, no? It's only words, and words are all I have.
Right.
That's all I can do. That's my calling. That is what I will do till the day I draw my last breath. And that's what keeps me going. So
beautifully so.
Yes. So
I really loved your grandmother's story.
Yeah. I think I honestly, I can't can't imagine putting that into a film or whatever. It's not a story
No,
about telling,
no, it
but
is, no, but it's a story, and what a story.
yeah, yeah. So,
I feel that
she had this
it,
peculiar habit, which I can't get out of my head even today. Um, in her last, like, whatever, 10 days, 10 years, sorry, 10 years, I said, 10 years, she was on a walker, right? Because she had hip surgeries and stuff and all that. And
right,
we had this house in Shivaji Park where you open the door and you see Shivaji Park, right? So you could see the
right,
temple. Ganesh temple was far distance away, but you could see it. She had
right.
a peculiar habit of, prostrating on her walker. Okay,
Okay,
and I used to really get irritated with her. I used to say, tell her, why the hell are you doing it? Because you're going to. She was not steady. So,
yes,
and I said, why all this? You could just go under mandir hai, do your puja and get out, right? So she told me, you never gone to this mandir with anyone, right? I said, no, I go alone. I said, I used to go with my husband. You have a problem? So whenever I do this now, I feel that I'm with him. So
wow,
she had a
wow,
very peculiar way of relationship building, and emotionally being invested. She used to make
yes,
bhelpuri. She used to make an awesome bhelpuri. Okay, so I asked her one day, where did you learn this from? So because she's not a woman who's traveled or gone beyond
right.
the confines of a house mainly. So I said, where did you learn bhelpuri? She said, no, this guy bhaiya came 40 years back to sell in that kopcha, and she tasted it for the first time. She liked it. She actually told my grandfather that I'm getting this man home for 2 days. I want to learn this. And she actually made him come and teach him because she said, "मैं घर के बाहर नहीं जा सकती, you come inside and teach me." So,
Wow,
she was quite weird, she was quite eccentric also,
and an amazing woman.
Yeah,
Yeah, eccentric and
yeah.
amazing. Yeah,
But she
that's
creatively eccentric. So,
very creative actually.
so I think I get a lot of my weirdness and wickedness from her. I use wickedness with absolute understanding of what it means. She was quite wicked as a
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
Wicked in the sense, not in the bad wicked, not in the
yeah.
wicked
I
way.
know what you say. Yeah, yeah.
She was sarcastic. She was
Yes,
acerbic. She had this
yes.
really tikha sense of humor. वो थप्पड़ मारने का तीखापन था मालूम है, but her words and her way of expressing stuff. So I think
Yeah.
that is where I base myself on. I'm really influenced by what I think I'm a product of what she has been. Really,
Yes,
not
yes.
my
And now
dad,
I
not
can
my
see.
mom, nobody. I think it is entirely. And if she's there up there, she's probably telling me something in
Yeah,
her own. I can imagine her
yeah.
choice konkani galis right now.
I should say that now I have an insight into your backstory, Shanti.
Yeah,
What makes you tick the
yeah,
way it does?
absolutely. I will go to your
Oh,
second question. Okay.
yes.
So what has really interested me, and again, don't worry about this face of mine right now. What's really interested me, Raji, and I really, really got interested with this. I was off Instagram for about 3 months. I had lost
Right,
access to my account. Got
right,
hacked, and then it took a long time for me to get it back. And when I came back, I realized I wasn't fascinated by it. I used to be extremely fascinated by Instagram. I used to post once a day. And then
right,
suddenly when you lose track of a media, I think it gets out of your life. You
right,
lose the same joy for it when you come back.
right.
But I was still following the people I like to follow, which is especially you. And then suddenly I'm also been following Suma in
Right.
Canada, and I think she's a fantastic creative person,
Very, very,
brilliant in her
very.
own way, and I hope she watches this. So she put up a story and she said that Anuradha, and I was like, okay, I saw and I said Rajashree Balaram. I said, wow. Then I read the post and I said,
Yeah.
Raji's doing a Malayalam play, and I said, wow. And I wrote to Suma, I messaged her, I said, you got Raji to write? She said, that was a surprise for you because I knew you would be happy. So, because I used to keep telling her, read Raji. She said, I'm already following Raji. What are you talking about?
Thank you.
So, my question is that, okay, so for those who don't know, sorry, I know this is not just a private conversation anymore. Rajashree has or Raji has just written a play in Malayalam called Anuradha, which is, I think, playing in Toronto, Raji, at a festival of
Yes, a short theatre festival. Yeah.
which is happening when? Next month, I think?
Next month, mid-month.
Yeah, mid-month. So,
May 13th, 14th, I think.
right. And this is being done with another lady called Suma Nair, who is a dancers, who's a performer, who's also a good writer in her own a great
Yeah.
person, and they're both collaborating. And there's another person called Hari Krishnan Nair, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, right? Right.
Hare Krishna.
So
Yeah.
Hari, Suma, and sorry, not Hari. I'll put Hari last. He doesn't deserve first. So Rajesh, Suma, and Hari have collaborated with this play called Anuradha. So my
Right.
question was that a why?
Hmm.
Why is not so important, but you can answer it if you choose to.
Yes. Yes.
But
Please. Yeah.
what has been the experience of writing a play? I mean, I would never imagine writing a play, and that too a musical one. I think it is a musical, right?
Yeah. It's not a musical one actually,
Yes,
Sandesh, but
correct.
also because yeah, there is a it's quite a beautiful happenstance, I have to describe it as such.
Right.
That Suma and I got talking about creativity and writing and all of that, just casual chat on Instagram.
Right.
And, she had liked many of my posts, and same here. And she said, if you think of a story, have you wanted to write for theater? And if you have a story that you would like to share with us,
Mm.
please do so, because we've got a festival coming up.
Right.
So for me, just like with Rockstar, when I didn't have any experience, I was into journalism prior to that in advertising. I had no experience about script writing to
Correct.
start with, none at all. And it's very bizarre that I quit advertising because I felt, increasingly so I'll have to write for the film medium,
Mm.
and I thought I was a very limited radio and ad film writer.
Mm.
I can't do it. I'm better off with print, and that is why I quit. So, 2013, when I had the story for Rockstar, which was, I had thought of it as a short story in a book of short stories.
Right.
And my friend and later the actor, the female lead of Rockstar, Eva,
Right.
she suggested that I should do it as a film, and probably so the same thing, the same experience. At that time, I said, no way am I going to write a film, because I have no experience, no background. I've done nothing in script writing. I don't know the technique of storytelling through a film.
Right.
So, see, I not that large a scale of nervousness and doubt, but
Mm.
still, when Sumar told me this, I was very excited. But at the same time, I was wondering whether there's a different template altogether. There is a different um, uh, drama and theater is a different beast
Correct.
altogether,
True.
right? So I went into it just like Rockstar. I think I don't learn from my mistakes very easily enough.
No one.
I don't. I'm not.
No
No.
one.
I'm not someone who learns from my mistakes. That is a problem with me. So with Rockstar, I did the same thing. I wrote initially. I wrote the film out like I would write a story. You
Mm.
know, uh, gushing into dialogues and talking about how beautiful the setting is. Who cares how beautiful the setting is being described? What is being said,
Correct.
what is not being said, and what is being done is more important, right?
Very
So
well.
the director really thrashed me and said, "You're not writing a feature here. Please understand. Your video, there are audio mein zyada, there are video mein kuch nahi." The same thing happened, The same thing happened here. Like, not the same thing, but I think I approached this time when I approached the story, I had in mind a short film. Okay,
Ah,
to give a bit of background, uh, after Rockstar, when I kind of crawled into a hole and decided not to do filmmaking. Then I decided to not to get into filmmaking. Then when I decided 4 years
I
later
think we
to
both
get
need
back
very
into
large
it,
holes to crawl into.
sorry,
We both need very large holes to crawl into. I mean,
very large, it was a large one, really large one, and it only got larger with the years too. But yeah, so I went back to do it, and I said, I said, okay, I thought I was being very cool that let's start out with short films. Zyada paisa nahi डूबने वाला है किसी का. So I went into it with a series of short films that I've written. None of them got made. There was one which almost reached the brink of it, and then at the last minute, the producer decided to opt out of it because of his personal reasons.
right.
I think he found a better story to invest in. Probably, I think that is what I last remember of it. But um, so I had written these 4 to 5 short films
Mm.
scripts, and I thought, one of them I felt could make a good play.
Mm.
Okay, I wrote that out. I shared it with Suma, and she got back to me saying, Rajshri, it's a very good story,
Hmm.
but it works for a film and doesn't work for theater.
Good.
Because this film that I had written was entirely based inside a car.
Hmm.
Start scene से लेके end scene तक.
Right.
Okay, start to finish, it's entirely inside a car. It's what happens between a man and a woman
Hmm.
inside the car. The woman is the driver, and there's a blind musician sitting next to her.
Wow.
Okay,
Nice. Interesting.
and that is the story. And there is a reveal at the end.
Hmm.
Okay, which we
Yeah,
are not,
obviously.
we don't foresee, which we don't foresee all along. It happens, um, but the limitation of being set inside a car. In my head, it's inside a car. So when I'm taking the camera, I can go inside the car
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have.
True, true, true. See, this is what happens
And
with writers, no?
yes, we don't. I
Sometimes
especially get
unable.
so insulated from,
Correct, correct.
uh, you know, uh,
Visual
insulated from the
challenges.
limitations of what drives that medium. And I tend to do that. I just get into the story so much that for a minute, I forgot that I
Hmm.
didn't even question, how will I, mold this into
Correct,
theater because it's happening on stage,
correct.
right? And then there are certain elements where how will it be revealed because it's happening inside a car. The camera can get in, but how will the audience get in?
No, yeah,
So,
true.
and which is
Yes.
so
So,
obvious now when I retrospect.
because
How
the
did I
camera will
do
get into that intimate space, but as somebody sitting
that?
10 rows back
But
is not going to get there. So,
And I am completely oblivious to this when I present this to her. And I'm so happy. I said, no, no, Suma's going to like it. But she, and she said, no, I like it, but at least make a film someday. But this doesn't work as a uh, theater thing. So I said, okay, there were two other things that were just not short films, which I thought someday might be short films. But I felt those have a better chance of being uh, on stage.
hmm,
And I shared the other story with her. It's a conversation between two women and intergenerational, two belonging to two different generations, and um, a whole lot of it, which you'll know later. But
yeah, you don't have to do anything.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Happening.
It's a conversation between two women happening, and it just lends itself. I understood now where I was going wrong, and I felt the story fits her. But while writing, then something as basic as the fact that what you say in theater
Hmm,
and your actions,
hmm,
okay, have to be able to reveal what you feel. While in film, there are the silences
correct.
that can,
Right.
right,
Right.
that can make for great stories. But or even a shift in movement, or even just a, a small change in the way the person looks up can be caught by close up. But we don't
Correct.
have that, I
True.
think, in theater. So all those things have to be taken care of when you're writing, because I would have, if I had to approach it as a film, even as a short film, I had those liberties.
True.
But theater that way, it really makes it the bare minimum and makes you want to. The audience is right there. Everything is happening in real time, and you have that real time is what you have to
Yes.
be
Absolutely.
constantly be aware of.
Absolutely.
But I love that process. I won't say that I did a lot of study of theater before
Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't have
putting
to.
that together. Even for Rockstar, I wanted it. That was also a choice for me because I felt that the while I, as a writer, I should be aware of technique and
Hmm,
I should be aware of how scenes are written for films.
correct.
You have to make allowances for certain things to be. Short, mid, close, long shot, all of that,
Correct.
and how the movement will flow, right?
True. True.
Um, uh, in theater, I didn't go studying the technique when I was
Yeah,
writing because I
I
was
honestly,
intent. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I
I
think you're saying you don't have to be a playwright technically.
yeah.
I think
Basically so.
yeah. I mean,
It's
lot of directors who direct in theater, a lot of actors will interpret your material the way it has to be interpreted for stage.
yes,
So it doesn't
and
have to be in that.
absolutely. And I felt, you are also then limiting the director because he
Exactly.
has a role to play.
Exactly.
And this is pointed out to me by a director. while I'm working on the second script,
Right.
Then now I'm suddenly the Shana who knows a little more about technique, right?
You have to be,
So I want to show that off when I'm writing. Yeah, in whatever capacity, very limited capacity, still I can. Now I want to show. So all my terms are written that way.
Right.
I'm being very specific that there is a close up here and there, and I'm writing those terms up because
So
it's
which
such.
means I see direction being part of your life in the next 4 years.
No, but when I'm a writer presenting it to the director, he wants to study.
Word, revealed. Breaking news,
Why
breaking
have
news,
you written?
breaking
So
news.
I presented it to him and I'm telling him, so he said, Raji, I hope you understand that things will change, right? It's not going to be. I said, yeah, I know, but I'm telling you exactly what I think of. So he said, yeah, just try to pare it down a little, okay? Because, because you tend to, but that is something that intrigues me. Direction.
Very.
Okay, I'm at the next step. I would like to, at some point in time,
You
not
should.
now. I'm not ready for it.
I think
And
you have to do it.
but Shantesh, I want to tell you that when it comes to direction, I'm very, very keen on directing a documentary.
Yeah. Whatever
Very
format,
keen.
whatever story.
Yeah, I'm very keen on doing a
You should.
documentary. I've been wanting to do it for the longest time. So even then with Femina and the kind of stories I got to do there,
Correct.
so documentary is something that intrigues me a lot, and I somehow feel that that is a space I want to get into.
You should. You should. Because I think now
Possibly.
what's happened is at least a lot of a lot of my internal instinct is also telling me. A lot of my people are telling me that direct power, get it
Yeah,
done,
yeah.
and then you have
I
to
was
just
about to
do it
come to
your way.
that.
Yeah, do it your way.
I was about to
Give
come
it
to
to
that. That
publisher, date, this,
you,
that.
the kind of storyteller you are,
Yeah, and
I
because I
think
like photography myself, I know basic amount of framing myself. I do
yes,
understand light shadow.
yes, yes, yes,
So I just need to pick up a phone these days. It can be done.
yes,
So
yes. Please do it because I think you would make a very good
I don't,
storyteller.
honestly, I don't care about the very good part of it. I think,
No, no. I'm telling you
uh,
only because of what I think. By when I say very good, I think you have more skills. I'm sure you know of them
no,
already,
but
but
ये
I
ना,
see
ये
you.
ये राजी अपना problem है. देखो बोलता हूँ, why? You see, my daughter's 12, almost 12.
Right.
It's coming naturally for them to just pick up a phone and shoot. They
Yes.
don't even think twice, right? And content creators today are getting younger because of this reason. Because
Yes.
हम
Yes.
लोग
Yes.
ही है ना कि we have these inhibitions and this worry that, oh God, I have to put myself out there. वो बड़ा
Yes.
process है. Get
I
out of
have to
it.
tell you what you said
Get
about
more.
Kavya. I'm sorry to cut in,
Sure.
Sandesh, but what you said about Kavya, like she's only 12, right?
Right.
And
She's
just
editing stuff.
recently,
She's writing stuff. She's drawing stuff. She's
yes,
designing stuff.
yes,
It's not. There's no shyness.
yes, there
There's
is
no
no, and they're
inhibition.
so confident about their
She
voice.
doesn't care,
We're not.
honestly. Yeah.
We're not confident about our voice, even after so many
Too
years.
many years of being in
I
media.
can see. We are still wondering, will I, am I doing the right thing? Am I
Yeah,
confident enough to do this right? Will I get it right? But for them, their voice and what they want to say is
correct.
enough.
They have to put
They
it out.
want to say, they want to put it out there, and they'll find a way to put it out there.
Exactly.
They don't want to be, they don't want to be overthinking like we do.
Correct.
I think we overthink, and they
No,
don't seem
because
to be doing that.
we came from nothing. Technically,
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't have technology at the end of the day. Right.
Right.
We did not have technology till we were in the mid 20s, Raji. We didn't have mobile phones,
Yes,
right? So
yes,
we had a pen and a paper, and computers were there.
yes,
So
yes,
and I think we're still in that. You need to get validated by self before the world validates. We're very scared, timid.
yes.
I think we need to move
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Technology has been a big game changer for them, and they are picking up way faster than we can
They're
here.
not worried. Look at the IPL cricketers. They hit a ball for a six first ball. Yeah. They don't even think about
Yeah,
reputations anymore.
yeah,
हम
yeah.
लोग ही वो reputation में बैठे हैं.
I was like recently, last 2 months ago, I was like there was this intra-school school film festival, okay,
Nice.
for schools in Muscat,
Hmm.
in Oman,
Hmm.
and I was one of the jury for one of the segments that they had, okay, jury members, and it it's so much of it is rudimentary, of course, because naturally they are so young and they don't have the kind of equipment
Particularly,
or the vision to see it. But the way the kids just got together to become actors, directors, storytellers, it's very interesting to see how confident they are. How confident, and these are like some of them were as young as 5.
yeah, correct. True.
So, group of 5-year-olds are talking about a comic book. They're trying to sell a comic book,
Very nice.
and so they made an ad film. So it's very interesting.
That's
It's
so
very exciting, and it's very scary the times we live in.
yeah, it is. Yeah, other
No,
flip side of it is also scary. True.
it makes us question our own talent and our own capability too. My second question to
Bolo.
you is, Sandesh, um, so uh, having been an advertising writer for so long, okay, I see you. I think you're going to write a book someday soon, or you're planning to do, okay, um, and now you're writing, these slice of life kind of writing for social media.
Right.
But in all this writing, it is an outlet for our creative urges, right?
Correct.
But when you write, have you ever asked yourself that in the long run, okay, what is it that your words, what is it that your words should achieve in the wider world? What is the kind of impact you would want your words to have on the world? How would you like it to change things or maybe let things be? How would you like to do that? Have you thought of that?
Straightforward answer, no. See, I don't know whether you leave back I don't think anyone ever writes thinking that they're going to leave
Legacy. No, no, no. But in the long run, I'm
Correct.
saying that is something none of us think
Correct.
of
See,
really. Even if I have to ask a question
for
to
me,
myself, I
for me, joy comes. I use that word joy. I think I'm using it fairly often now. But for me, what's so I as I say, I have a professional writing side to me which pays my bills, and I am due to.
right,
I'm responsible for my clients at the end of the day. So I've been very मैंने नमक हलाली रखा है towards
right,
advertising, right? So I know which
right,
side my bread is buttered, and not because that side it needs to be buttered, but eventually I'm in commercial writing, right? So uh,
right.
I am responsible for the brands I handle and for the clients I
Absolutely.
report to, and I never, like they say na थूक लगा के देना. I never थूक
I
लगाता.
know.
Even in
I
my
know.
worst day, I try and bring some kind of value to that
Yes.
business because
Right.
see, they are investing monies on you and on their brand,
Right.
and you
Right.
you how much ever as writers we feel that I like how you put it twice in this conversation that paisa important hota hai writer ke liye.
Right.
We tend to as writers sometimes say that, oh, it's just it's not our money
No.
that's going in, but
No.
when
No.
you
No.
realize when a producer puts in money, or when
Absolutely.
when a client puts in money on a brand, that they
Right.
have a stake in it, and
Yes.
it's important for me, my words to make a difference to that brand. So
Right.
for me, the joy comes out of simple things like a client writing a nice mail saying that, Auntie, thank you, it worked,
Right.
or it didn't work, whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
there is a process, and there is a hit and miss to that
Yes.
part of life, and
Yes.
so my words have to somewhere cause an impact, positive or negative.
Yes.
वो
Yes.
एक side है मेरा. So professionally, my life is 80% of my writing life is professional, right?
Right.
Maybe 90, because because
Right.
advertising is very intensive these days with social media and
Yes.
everything and all that.
Absolutely.
Probably about 85-90% of my writing time, physical writing time, mental writing time is devoted to the advertising side. On the personal side, yes, I've been carrying this burden of books, write a book, just as you have probably
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
far too long. It's
Yeah.
like वो बेताल मेरे बैग से कब उड़ उड़ के बोलेगा विक्रम मैं जा रहा हूँ मैं तेरे बस में नहीं आने वाला, मैं तेरे गाड़ी में नहीं आने वाला. I'm just waiting for that betal to say that someday, because there are honestly 3 betals sitting. I have 3 interesting betals sitting on my back.
Right.
One is a cricket book, which is really something I'm looking forward to,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
You can start that.
I've lived my life in Shivaji Park. Cricket is the only thing that is better than sex for me.
Yep.
just excites me a lot. And
Mhm.
I know my cricket. I've
Yeah.
followed, I've read, I watched Zimbabwe playing Zimbabwe. I'm that
Yeah.
big a fan. If Zimbabwe 10th team of Zimbabwe plays the 9th team of Zimbabwe, I still watch a match, right?
Yeah.
So I have
Yeah.
a book which is very linked to what Shivaji Park has meant to cricket, and
Yes.
I want to write that because there is a due for me as a Shivaji Park resident to give back.
Yes.
I think various people have told stories about Shivaji Park from a
Yeah.
cultural point of view,
Yes. Yes.
not from a cricketing point of view. So
No, I
broadly,
don't think I
yeah,
have, and I think
yeah,
it's such original concept that
yeah.
you
So
haven't.
there are certain stories of cricket there, and these are not stories of the biggies who have come from Shivaji Park. Obviously, Shivaji Park,
Yes.
even Tendulkar
Yes.
and
Yes. Yes.
Ganguly,
Yes.
and, but there are stories of unheard of people. There are stories of
Yes.
great failure, of talent going gone waste, of
Yeah.
people who used to take a train at 2 in the morning in Bombay and come to at the age of 6, holding a big bag from Dombivli,
Yeah.
coming in at 6 in the morning, practicing till 10, taking that bag, going to school, coming back again in the evening with the same bag.
Yeah.
Just not because the
Yeah.
parents are pushing them. Today, parents are pushing, ha, IPL kill, IPL kill. This is 30,
Right.
40 years back, where it was passion. It was pure passion for that. Their only objective of a lot of people there was, हाँ मेरे को Sungrace Mafatlan में एक job मिलेगा या railways में job मिलेगा या Nirlon
Yeah.
would give me a job,
Yeah.
because I would be playing cricket for them. But their life was cricket. There are
Yeah.
stories of this guy, a groundsman. You know,
Yeah.
he spent his whole life making the pitches at Shivaji Park. It was a thankless job. But there is a story I have about this one
Really?
groundsman, and it is so beautiful because when I played cricket, this is a guy I know. Okay, he used to
Yeah.
come at 3:34 in the morning and water the pitch. Okay,
Okay.
so I would be ready for the players who were coming in at 6. And
Right.
he told me a story once, many years back, and it struck in me that that there are so many aspects of cricket beyond the players that we
Yes.
don't talk about, and the ground is like the mother earth for them.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
like a farmer has his fields, a cricket pitch or a cricket stadium is the mecca or the temple for so many people.
Yes.
So I want to tell these stories. I think this is, if I want to leave a legacy, if I ever want words to make an impact, I do want to leave this story back with people because
I'm
uh,
so glad you think
yeah.
that.
So this is something I'm very interested. The other two betals are I would say vanity projects. I will call them vanity projects. This is closer
What
to
are
vanity.
these vanity projects that you have? You want to talk about them?
Yeah, like winning a Booker.
Of course, yeah. What
No,
is so vain about
no,
that?
no,
Can
no.
we?
I think I have something very interesting, but it is not something that is coming easily to me to write.
Yeah.
This is a book that is it's too difficult for me to produce right now because it's a great concept. And
Yeah.
honestly, if I tell the concept, it's a concept somebody will just take and go with.
Please do not. Never talk about concepts. Just
But
talk about
yeah. But
just
yeah,
talk about book talk and leave it at that.
the larger sense of the word, legacy. Um, I think writers leave a legacy for themselves
Yes.
because it is the only thing we can do, Raji. At the end of the
It's
day.
the only thing. The only thing.
I
we can
can't go back and play cricket now, though I probably will be able to hit a ball or whatever. I can cook. Maybe I can become a chef tomorrow. I'm half
do.
decent,
Yeah.
half decent
Yeah.
chef. But I'll have to redo everything around my life, right?
Yeah.
Whereas writing, as long as my head is fine, even if my head is not fine, I write, right? That's a good space to write from, actually.
That's bad.
Yeah,
That is
but
also
as
one
long
of the
as
questions.
our gray cells don't wither or are we're not getting into some kind of memory issues, um, our legacy is to write, and our legacy is
Just
to,
to write.
it gives me a lot of pleasure actually being a writer.
Yeah.
And I talk about legacy. It's a funny thing. So one of my writer friends always told me this: the best legacy you leave is when you go to a party or to a gathering where there are strangers, and
Yeah.
when you say you're a writer, the effect it makes on the other person.
Yes.
There's that immediate intrigue and mystery that comes into you.
Yes.
You
Yes.
become
I see
immediately
that.
interesting, right?
Yes.
Now, that same thing doesn't happen when a banker comes into the room and says, "I'm a banker." right?
Yes.
तो say bhagam chut. Sorry about that. तू मेरा पैसा ले रहा है credit card में, right? Oh, but you must be making money, right?
We
That
have to
all
we
lawyers.
have to think of all the bankers who are going to watch this
Correct. No, no,
video.
half the bankers are in my
But
family, but
but what you're saying makes sense.
yeah.
I
So
have
legacy,
seen this impact. Yeah.
it's an impact.
Yeah.
See, what happens is creative people generally are thought to be the oddballs.
Yeah.
And there is this patina of intrigue and mystery. We are like the James Bonds of the creative.
Yes. No one really knows how
Yeah,
it works.
exactly.
You know?
International man. So they assume that there are gears going along in your head.
Yeah.
They assume that you're going to. I'm going to observe a peculiarity about
Yes.
you.
Yes.
They want to hear. They want to actually know if you speak as well as you write. I've
Yes.
actually had somebody telling me this. Do you write as well as you speak?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I found that a very odd, conversation.
Question coming at you.
But
Yeah.
I mean, was it a backhanded compliment or was it a compliment, right? So
You
sometimes
still, even I would wonder
yeah,
at something
right.
like that.
So
You know?
these are things that fascinate me, and in the sense that I don't have to explain myself when I say I'm a writer. People assume things about you, and that is your
Yeah.
legacy. That is
Yes,
a
I mean,
legacy to carry.
beautifully said, actually. You know, each one has a different interpretation of what you're doing
Yeah.
and what you probably would be doing. Some people would ask you what exactly that you do. I mean, right? But how do you go about it
So
is
I
something
think
that
it just instigates more conversations.
yeah, more
It just
conversation. People are
they
drawn towards that.
correct. They gravitated towards that there is a certain,
Yeah,
I won't call it attraction, but there is a certain key,
mystery to it, you know.
because you don't
Kya
have,
hai?
you will always have in 9 out of 10 people in a room are generally, and I don't want to use the word, but they're cookie cutters, right? So they are doing a job which is a traditional job.
Yes.
Like, for example, if I were to walk in today and I met somebody who said, I deal in crypto, I would say, wow, because for me that is interesting, right? So I would immediately like go to that person and say, what is crypto? Kya kar raha hai?
Right.
So for me, I find that person very fascinating. I
Very
may
fascinating.
not find a person who says that, oh yeah, but I am an investment banker. I say, okay, fine. What will I discuss beyond? It's not even
Yes.
exciting. So I think that writing and writers give you that little bit of the edge. So legacy बहुत बड़ा बात है. मेरा कोई स्मारक नहीं बनने वाला है.
No.
How many
Legacy.
writers have स्मारक?
Exactly when I said the impact of your words, this is what I meant. You know, what you said about Shivaji Park. It is, it would be we'd probably be too pompous to be thinking about legacy when we write. Okay, when we're writing, we're just driven by what we do. But when we sit back and think, what it's nice to know more than legacy. I like, for instance, something very as simple as me having put up an Instagram post one day, and the same day and the next day, I think people wrote to me. Three, four women and a couple of men wrote to me saying that this felt so personal, and thank you for writing, because I felt like I was understood.
Exactly.
Now I wasn't thinking of that person, right? And each person has a different struggle that day. Exactly. I don't know of struggles. I'm thinking about
there is this comment you receive sometimes saying that I needed this today.
Yes.
Just, a lot of people write to you saying that, I needed to read this today, or I need.
Yes. And that is when you feel good.
That's all.
That is all the, I mean, besides all that, probably the way we would be validated with awards, with recognition, whatever.
Yeah.
That is great when and if it has to happen. Right. But the greater joy is when someone feels like you've written about them.
True. Right.
Yes. No, that moment when someone feels that, I felt like you were writing about me. That is such a beautiful thing that happens. And I think most writers, that is what the mirage, shimmering in the distance.
We talk about purpose, right? I mean, a lot of brands are talking about purpose today, and a lot of people are talking about purpose as well.
Right.
I remember, and I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, both as Tolkien as well as what Peter Jackson did with the films. And there was this one particular behind the scenes which I watched where Jackson is one of the biggest fans of Tolkien, right? Which is why
Right.
he made those films. And he said
Right.
that Tolkien's purpose was not to be Tolkien. Tolkien's purpose was to create a mythology which did not exist.
Yeah.
He said India has Ramayana, India has Mahabharata, there are
Yeah.
stories everywhere. There was no real British or English mythology. So as a
Yes.
linguist, he actually forced himself as a purpose to write this whole world with so many languages. There are many million
Yes.
languages within this. Quenya, there's Silmarillion. There's a lot of language in that. Now he found most of his fame posthumously.
Yes. Yes.
People are still buying Lord of the Rings today. People are still consuming
Right.
it today, right?
Right.
He never wrote that with saying, "I'm going to be J.R.R. Tolkien."
Again.
So I think
Absolutely.
legacy sometimes is really what you do as a purpose.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
it may like you don't know eventually where your writing is going.
Yeah.
So it depends. Your validation points are very different at the end of it.
Yeah.
If you are looking to write for fame, do it. I think it's like you got to go with a mission. If you are
Yeah.
writing to achieve something, go for it. Don't feel
Yes.
apologetic about it.
No, I don't think one should be apologetic about what you said, like, aiming for a booker or aiming for
Whatever it is, whatever that floats your boat. Yeah.
whatever kind of success that there is some metric to how you're
Yeah,
going to, evaluate.
absolutely.
But um, yeah, but I think at the core of it is this feeling that, when someone, I think when you know without realizing that you are being empathetic, your words
True, true.
somewhere, be it in advertising, be it in storytelling for films, wherever, when you know that you've got it right, because even advertising, like, while we would want to say, it's constricted by so many parameters, right? It has to sell, it has to make an impact, it has to deliver
Correct.
on different fronts other than what films will do. But the fact is, you're riding on a feeling. Someone's going
Right.
to feel something,
True.
even if that ad is cold, it must appeal to a feeling,
Correct.
or a thought, or that choice that that person is going to make.
Correct.
So even if it is, scripted to that, to achieve that, that commercial advantage, but still I feel, when you get it right, like you said, when your client says you got it right,
Yeah, yeah.
good, right? This is exactly what, why that helps, and that is, as fulfilling, I feel, is because the client had something to say through what he's selling, right? He wanted his product to be doing this, पैसा हो जो भी हो, fabulous success हुआ जो भी है,
Correct.
लेकिन उसको जो response मिला, the response that, what your words did, what he couldn't have used words, but you could.
No, not just he
What
couldn't,
he-
not just that he couldn't have used words. I think a lot of people repose faith on you.
exactly,
As,
exactly. You have a certain skill set that
right.
at that point
Now,
the
if,
client
like, for example, a
isn't.
director likes your script. Now,
Yes,
he or she is reposing her faith in what you've written, because it's also
exactly.
her reputation. It's also her vision.
Exactly. To
There's a lot
me,
of
it
things
is
in
a
it.
greater challenge,
Right.
and it is a greater challenge. When I say the client couldn't have, therefore, it's not client couldn't and therefore he came
Correct.
to you.
Very true.
The client trusts you to do what he envisions this,
Exactly.
particular
I have
project to do.
another thing which is we are having a very, how would I put it? Uh, we if anyone wants to watch this from an external perspective, right? And who doesn't know us, doesn't know us at
Yes,
all, he or she will look at it as a conversation between we अच्छा एक conversation चल रहा है. What they don't realize is that there are two egos as players here as well. As
yes,
actors, we
yes.
have tremendous
Oh
egos.
yeah, tremendous
You're
ego. And
always a simmer. You're always
yes,
a boil. You're always there is like the water is hot, warm enough. You never know. कभी steam होगा, कभी ये
yes,
ठंडा पड़ जाएगा. So
right.
what I've realized with creative people at the end of the day is that there is that certain underlying current of tension
Yeah,
always, and that
yes,
tension is because of that ego. And I
yes.
don't use ego in terms of that ego. I'm
No,
saying
no,
that
no, no, no.
I'm a writer. I got to.
Yeah, and you take that very seriously. That is something you cannot take
That
lightly.
wavelength you feel, you get that vibration that this person is like this pendulum swinging.
Yeah.
You,
Swinging.
it's like I saw this beautiful ad for Coca-Cola the other day. It just had 3 shots of close-ups of Coca-Cola, and it said that the line said something that you can hear what's happening.
Ah,
What happens is when you see the visual, you immediately hear the fizz, right? The pop.
right.
I
I
love
got
that,
that.
I love that creator because of that, because the line actually made that sound come to me, right?
Yes.
So it's the same as when you meet a writer or a creator, right? You know यार अंदर कुछ ये beat अलग हो रहा है,
Right.
right? वो क्या है
Right.
पता नहीं, वो but वो आ
Right.
रहा है. So I think that is your legacy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You are never
for
going to be
me,
a different. You're never going to be an uninteresting person. Is your legacy?
never, never, never. Even at your most boring, I think
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
be
You're most
because you're
boring.
only boring to yourself.
You'll be
Yeah, that
extremely
that
boring.
does happen.
You'll be
Someone or the other will find us interesting eventually.
hopefully.
Someone or the other will.
Achha,
Even if we think we're
we
boring.
may not be able
Uh,
to pack in all 5 questions because it's going to be later at your end.
yeah, it's going to be late. It's
Yeah,
going
so
to be late.
we'll pack in the third and we'll wrap. We'll do
Cool.
the fourth end. Okay, so I'll pick up what I feel is the more interesting of the last 3 questions.
Yeah.
This is the fifth question which I had in mind. So I started by saying, Raji is one of, Raji is like, Gulzar is the female Raji.
God, oh my God.
And I'm not being disrespectful to Mr. Sampuran Singh here.
You're being very, very disrespectful to Chandran Singh.
No.
You're
So,
being very
Raji,
disrespectful to
Raji
Chandran Singh.
always reminds me of Gulzar Saab, because Gulzar Saab has this very unusual way. He will use words like chimta and belan and चुन्नी लेके सोती थी कमाल लगती थी पानी का. His
Yes.
words are just damn earthy, man.
Yeah.
You are transported to earth. You can feel water, you can feel sky, you can feel onion being crunched, you can feel that. His words are like that. You can, तेरी कमर के बल से नदी मुड़ा करती थी. I mean, to imagine a woman's waist as the winding river, to put a physicality to the whole thing, Bidi jalaile jigar se piya. I mean, these are words of a guy, of a man, of a writer in complete control of his natural surroundings, who knows where to draw his inspiration from. Raji, I feel you're like that. Okay. I really feel, because when
I have a lot to say to that when you say that, but here's what I'll say.
I will give you perspective from where I see it.
Okay.
You can refute it, but don't refute it.
Yeah.
In this case, it's absolutely true. I feel your writing is this fabric of being very elemental. It's very sensual. There's a very, very simmering hint of erotic at times, even when you write about food. Right? So, if I were to ask you just one very pointed question, and what is your style, or where do you find? I started by saying, every writer finds a pilgrimage. Every writer is on a pilgrimage. वो एक 4 धाम की तरफ जा रहा है, right? वो पहुंचेगा धाम तक पता नहीं, लेकिन there is a pilgrimage you go on as a writer. What is your pilgrimage all about? If you were to describe this, because your writing is, I feel, I've heard people commenting on your post saying that Raji, you're my Kamala Das, for example. Which I also find is a very, very, very correct comparison. It may not be a direct comparison, it's a correct comparison. So where do you? There's a little bit of Francis Newton D'Souza in it. You've seen his painting, right? I find a little bit of Souza and Das in you. There's that mix of
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Right? So whatever you do, and guys, please read Raji's food writing.
Thank you. I've been told about the food writing.
Go to Instagram, negate all her photographs, negate all her poetry. Just look at those thalis which have food parosad in them, and read those damn captions below. And trust me, you will want to eat immediately. Right? Okay, so where is your pilgrimage? What is it?
Okay, interesting. I have to say that you keep telling me about writing a book. I have to mention this, and then I'll get into the answer. And because you mentioned food writing, I have to say this. So the book I have in mind, which eventually someday I'm going to get to write, book of short stories. It would be. It is around food. It is not documenting food. Each is it's a piece of fiction, all of it, but it will be about how food can break down so many barriers. Our barriers within ourselves, our barriers with the wider world, with people, can
True.
break down so many barriers. So each character is negotiating a journey with food.
I
In
already love
nego-
it. I already love it. I
yeah, so
already
I'm
this has
working
been
on that one. Yeah, I'm really working on that one, and I have these characters, so I'm working on that. And I should be honest enough to say I've not started writing it like every day in a disciplined way,
that's
but
fine.
this is something I have put a deadline to, and I hope to get
You
it out of.
must, you must. You know, the oddly, very oddly, the moment you said this, and I don't know if you've seen this film called Das Kahaniyan, which was an old film.
Huh, huh, huh.
10-15 साल पहले आया था, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
there's a story called Rice Plate. I don't know if you remember it.
yes,
In the
yes, yes,
and
yes.
Shabana Azmi,
Shabana is
or that,
beautiful.
that train station, that Hindu
Yes, yes,
Muslim train, right?
yes, yes,
I
yes, yes.
instantly my head when you said that, food, people, and circumstances,
Yeah,
my mind went straight to that story because
yeah,
I could immediately get that in my head because I love those two actors.
yeah.
I
Yes, yes. And that story is
yeah, that
remarkable.
scenario was fantastic. That conversation
Fabulous
they
story.
had was
Fabulous
so
story.
I can already see where you're going, which direction you're going. Though
Actually,
I know that your stories will be much more layered.
Shantish, I actually, I didn't quite realize that, that I love writing. I mean, I love cooking. I love feeding people. I love feeding, actually. I love having people over, uh, feed, do a little, And to me, it is more than the aesthetic of how I lay the table out, and all of that doesn't come
Yeah, correct. It's the food
very
also.
easy. But I love, I would love to see people like really enjoy their food, whatever that is, very simply said.
Correct.
But what I feel is uh, it could be because of, like, in your case, your grandmom. I think subconsciously for me, it is my Veljama, okay,
Right.
the one who raised me.
Correct.
She's the one who brought me up, okay, my mom's elder sister.
Right.
And so they came to Bombay. I think I probably said this earlier on Instagram.
Yes.
Extreme abject poverty.
Correct.
Really didn't have food to eat. Through their childhood, and they struggled a lot before they finally made it here. But she would constantly tell me about the value of food. I think which all our parents from that generation, they always made sure we never wasted food because we are
बिल्कुल,
running it within a budget.
बिल्कुल.
Also, where I grew up, that had a big influence on me because something like, it was a mill workers colony,
Correct.
cotton, where I grew up,
Yeah.
lower middle class upbringing. So we would have this common verandas,
Yeah,
and
I lived in Sri
kind
Lanka.
of set up
Yeah.
small homes, really small houses, 220 square feet at best. But I realized that people struggled with money. Every month by the 15th or 18th, you always had neighbors asking each other for loans, and I'll give
Correct.
it to you when the salary comes. And these are like single earning families, single income families. And but despite all that, all those odds, and you had larger families, right? You had kids, like 5 kids in each house,
True.
3 kids and 5 kids and 7 kids. But so you've got so little in hand, each family,
Right.
right?
True.
And there's a Muslim, there's a Maharashtrian, there's a Punjabi, and all of them. But people shared food so readily.
True.
Like, I have seen uh, fights and grudges being erased over food.
True.
Like, there would be probably an uncle who had a drinking problem, who
Right.
would get into a fight with the neighbor over something. Okay. And then they have a bit of bad blood between them going on for a few days.
Right.
And then this auntie, the wife of that uncle, would go over to this auntie's house
Correct.
and the neighboring auntie with food and say, I made this today, so and then they are talking,
Right.
right? And it's not even festive season.
Correct.
And the food that was being shared is nothing lavish or rich, or,
Correct.
it is just basic sabzi that has been made that day, or mutton that has been made that day.
True.
and you're struggling with so much. And there is food kind of scripted so many highs and lows for people, how they shared food amongst themselves as a family, how they
Right.
shared it with others. So
Right.
I think all of that when I was growing up, had a huge impact, which I didn't quite realize. When I write about food, I feel food is like an emotion, and when I say that, it is not about the how great it tastes and what it makes me feel, but I think food, when we break bread, and that there is that thing, of brotherhood and
True.
taking it and come together. It really does. It really does, and that needs to be delved in a lot more. So I love writing about food a lot, but about the other thing now, about the pilgrimage. I think when I started out in advertising, I took a long time, Shankesh, to be really confident of my voice.
Mm.
You know, for the longest time, fortunately, when I moved from advertising, where I gave up because I think I was not a very effective advertising writer,
Mm.
and I really wasn't. I think I never delivered, the way one should. And I opted out when I did, and I went into e-learning for a bit. Then I got into journalism. Now, when I got into journalism, and I loved long format writing and all of that, you know, as an advertising writer, I had to make something sound good enough for it to be bought,
Mm.
right?
True.
So I have to, right? I have to make it. I have to make it a hero. I
Has to be
have to.
dressed in a
I
certain
cannot
way.
be talking about its flaws. I have because
Right.
someone's going to put a
You have to
name.
dress it up. You have to dress it
Exactly. And you want to dress it up. You want to make it larger than life.
up.
And that affected me, and that presided over the way I wrote in journalism at first.
Correct.
When I would meet people, I didn't. I wanted to see them as larger than life.
Mm.
Okay, I would gush over them, and
Right.
there would be a whole lot of purple prose in my writing. It was like one of my senior editors, and I look up to two people who really whipped me into shape when I
Right.
got into journalism. Those are the two people. One is Aarti Menon,
Right.
Aarti Raj Menon, and one is Sudeep Chakravarti.
Yeah.
Both very different styles in the way they led me as a writer, but they had a huge influence on me.
Mm.
Um, One was brutal,
Mm.
like brutal in the way that I remember that I had written about Usha Uttup, and I went to him with that. That was a cover story, and he
Mm.
had said that this is more purple than her Kanjivaram sari. So you can, and that hurt me. That hurt me so. I mean, I wept when he said that. And he said, the next attempt you don't get it right, Ravi, just slit your wrist.
I'll make a purple into a pink slip.
So he was brutal, okay? And I cried and cried. And then he said, you know what? He told me that, you sit with, forget all the red lines that I've made on this document. And it was only red everywhere. There was nothing to say in the story.
Wow.
And there was content, but it
Right.
was not. It was trying to make Usha Uthapat, oh, this, look at her. She has all the light that she needs. I don't need to bring a
True.
torchlight to her.
True.
But I was only doing that. I was not looking at her as a person
Mm.
beyond the celebrity
Beyond
that
the
she is.
Usha Uttu Pusha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was missing in my stories back then. And that evening I sat and I had six drafts which had been scrapped. Okay, I was working on the seventh draft, I think.
Wow.
And that's when I sat and I said, okay, I have to I'm awestruck when I'm
Mm.
writing, and I need to take that lens
Sit
off
that
when I'm
down.
writing. And my journey from then in journalism has been, when you say pilgrimage, I'm trying increasingly so. My pilgrimage is about seeing people, uh, seeing them for who they would like to be seen as,
Nice.
and who they are too scared to be seen as,
Very,
and
very,
how beautiful is that space where they are scared to be seen
very.
as, because I would like certain parts of myself which I'm very probably ashamed of or scared of to reveal, but if someone had to see it as me and what made me do it, that empathy, I think that helps me. So I like
I
the
love that.
rawness. Yeah, I wouldn't. I think, erotica, everything is not, besides the sensation element to it. I love being able to write. That is something that I would love
No,
to write. A
no, I think
fantastic.
that, very few people can pull it off without uh, reading it either as crass or as puerile almost,
Yeah.
or laughable sometimes.
Yes.
There's this
Yes.
bad sex writing award that's also been given for it. I've forgotten the name now. I think you have
Right.
this very, okay, no, बोलते हैं ना वो एक, I've used this word in simmering at the surface erotica, which is beautiful because they are leading the reader to imagine
Yes.
in between.
I really would like to write something about. I think it is very tactile, and I
Yes.
think touch has not been written enough about. And when I say touch, all kinds of touch, sexual and affectionate and loving and cold, kind of
Food
touch.
itself, no, because food is the most
Yes,
is actually an
it's
erotic.
yes.
It's
So
engaging all senses. It really is
yes,
engaging all the senses, right? So,
yes. So yeah,
it's brilliant. So,
I just want to see people and see things as what you know they would like to be seen, and most importantly, felt that they've been seen the
fantastic.
way they are. That is what my journey is. I would put it down very simply.
So
That is what I.
I love how you said that you want to put people in that zone where they want to see themselves, but they're afraid of it as well.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a very very nice space to be in, actually very tough space to be in as well as a
yeah.
writer. But
But
it's a
it
beautiful,
is an interesting space.
fantastic idea. You can ask
Shall
me
I
ask me
sound off my last question for
yes,
you?
yes,
Um, okay, I
very
don't know which one.
no, no,
I think so many things I want to ask you, Shantesh. But
we
yeah.
take the one question, Bapre, Bapre. Okay, we had initially got this as 5 questions for everyone, but we have, in
Yeah.
interest of time, we're keeping it to 3. So,
Yes. Um, what is a genre of writing that intimidates you and yet makes you want to attempt it or master it? And you would be challenged, you feel challenged by it and would like to master it.
so, if I were to look at my core writing skills, and I hate using jargon, but uh, every writer has
Yeah.
her core, right, from where
Yeah.
things come in. So obviously, my professionally brand writing or creative advertising writing is a skill. It's a skill I've probably been born with, and then I've honed it over time and experience. Right, that's
Right.
one part of the exercise. Again, that's like I said, that's 80-85% of my life, but that comes very naturally to me. I'm never intimidated by it.
Yeah.
However tough the challenge is from a brand perspective, it'll be done because I have my
Yeah.
own ways of working around it.
Right.
On a personal front, you already know that I love cricket, so that's not
Yeah.
ever going to intimidate me. Uh,
Yes.
I love this thing which is bubbling in my head, like which you've seen on Instagram, is this, you know, a photograph and a story, but
Yes.
they are actually opposites of each other. So
Yes.
I try to look at the writing part is very, it's a layer from the photograph which has not been revealed, right?
Yes.
So I'm actually looking at that as a book eventually, maybe one day, where
Yes. Yes.
you see a
I think
photograph.
you should.
Yeah, so there are these yin and yangs to it. So
Yes.
the photograph, as they say, a photo is 1,000 words. It's telling you 1,000 words, but
Yes.
the writing is actually telling you the 1,001th word, right?
Yes.
Which is
I
not.
love what
Yeah,
you're attempting in that. I
right.
really, in fact, whatever you would have answered to this question, I would have told you my
Yeah.
tail end
So
would have been about that.
that to a certain extent intimidates me. The reason was
Yeah.
because I never realized. It took me time to realize that I actually have an eye for photography.
Yes.
It
You
took me
do.
time, and I had to actually. I was scared to put it out. To be honest,
Yes.
I always had that skill, uh,
Yeah.
but I did not put it out for a long time.
Right.
But then iPhone photography came in, and I said, listen, I'm writing, and I wanted to do something different on Instagram. I said, let me start doing this black and white uh, series.
Yeah.
Let me just start with one,
Yeah.
and then I realized I'm actually enjoying this. This is what
Yes.
I want to do. And that, that I started doing this. You've seen it. I'll start putting it back on my Instagram where people will not see it. But
Please put it back. Please put. I think it's. Please put
yeah.
it back.
So that intimidates me to a certain extent because it's two parts, right? You're using a
Yeah.
photographic medium, so you got to tell a story there, and then you got to tell a different part of a story in with your writing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I try, if you look at my writing, I don't write. I write very concise. Uh,
Absolutely.
Even conversations are just one dialogue, one dialogue. And the reason
Right.
I do that is not out of design, but my head is wired that way.
Hired that way.
I really like to just keep it to 8 words or 10 words.
I really love that
Right? And
about
it's
you
a
guys.
challenge to do it, but somehow, actually, already enough it comes naturally to me. For me, long form is more of intimidating. It's very intimidating. I
Yeah.
think you found your love, or it came naturally to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you probably moved out of advertising because it's a more concise way of
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
really condense everything into those 20 words you write have to have the impact of 200, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
For
And
me,
that is
that
very
comes,
challenging.
that comes very naturally. That is like left hand for me.
Like I said, I still am in awe of you for that. I really am, and I'm not trying to make this
No, I
sound.
think, but it's not about the
I'm
audience.
really in awe of you when you're able to do that. Like make it so intense with 12 words.
Yeah, I think that is something I love doing. It's
Yeah,
again,
I think that is beautiful. That
I,
is
I
really beautiful.
I like the silences between the unsaids.
Yes,
I love that space. So for
yes,
me, I
yes.
push the envelope saying that if there is an unsaid here, how do I say that unsaid in the least amount of words?
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
somebody comes looking at it and says that I'm reading something else completely.
yeah.
So that's this. Anyway, that's one part of the intimidation point of view. What is my real intimidation? Intimidation is a very, very funny thing actually. Um, I started watching horror films
Uh-huh.
age of 6. Okay,
Okay,
I love the genre. Uh,
right.
I have watched probably thousands of horror films. Okay, everything from the absolute bottom of the barrel Z grade
Right.
Ramesh Talwar directed horror
I
film.
know.
No,
Ramses it is.
still okay grade. I'm saying bottom of the barrel Z grade horror films where the ghost is a T-shirt with a skull, and you can see a hand holding the T-shirt and shaking it to scare somebody. Okay,
I got
that
it.
who need Dracula types. Okay,
Uh,
I have gone from that to brilliant horror movies like Turn of the Screw. Uh,
uh-huh.
yeah, so I mean, absolutely, I love the genre.
Right.
I have read everything from Sheridan Le Fanu to Bram Stoker to King,
Okay.
to Stephen King to name the writer, name the horror writer. It's a genre that has always fascinated me. I love it. It should come like this to me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
doesn't. Right?
Uh,
I actually started doing this thing called a short story, a novella of horror story.
huh.
I started writing it. Okay, I
Uh-huh.
had 3 stories written, and I sent it to publication. Actually, my first boss is Rashmi Bansal. Okay, who
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
established,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So she
yeah,
had a
yeah.
magazine called Jam, and I started off my journey in writing with that before I got into advertising.
Right.
So Rashmi is a fantastic editor, and again, she whipped up whatever little she could whip off me at a very young age. But I was really wet behind the ears, but I was full of ideas. So, and Jam was very simple writing. We had to have fun with
Yeah.
college magazine.
Right.
So when I wrote these 3 stories, she had this initiative called Bloody Good Book, which was happening
Huh.
about 7 years back. And I sent it out thinking that it was an interesting exercise. And the moment I sent out and I realized I had made a mistake
Uh-huh.
because the only horror those stories were giving was laughs. Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I looked at those 3 stories again and I said, if this is what a guy who loves horror writes,
Yeah.
something is desperately wrong. And
Yeah.
because I started getting feedback from people who had shared it with, and they were amazed that they were very brutally honest with me, right? And they said, "This is not scaring us. This is not horror. This is not evoking anything in us." So I
Okay.
am actually
Okay.
now at a point where
Very interesting.
I have 100 horror stories in me. Okay, I can
Okay.
actually write them tomorrow. I can actually
Okay.
direct a horror film tomorrow if I want. I have a story. A
Okay.
great, brilliant, absolutely brilliant film story. I'm, you use the word scared. I'm intimidated. I'm feeling like, yeah. So this is like, what happens? It's like uh, Arjuna getting worried about shooting an arrow.
Ah.
It's that kind of.
There's
Uh,
someone at the door. Should I
yeah,
just
yeah,
go
sure.
open it?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
make it safe.
yeah. I read this in any case. No worries.
Sorry.
No
Yeah.
worries, no worries. Yeah, so
Yes.
that's the thing.
Arjuna.
Arjuna is actually, I'm like Arjuna worried
I
about.
so conveniently forget that I've got a
Uh,
earphone on. Yeah.
I,
Arjuna, you said.
I
That's a
am
very interesting analogy. Yeah.
intimidated by my own Gandhi bow. I have this amazing bow. I know it is there. I have this amazing arrow. They're all there. The quivers are all there. I mean, the arrows are all in my quiver, but I just cannot bring myself to putting it on paper. And
Because
I
I
am
know so much actually. I
drama,
think
romance, which are two of my weakest suits. I seem to think that more, I write that cricket, of course, humor I do, but horror, which is supposedly could have been my legacy, is my death. This is the death of me these days. So
how
I
do you
am really trying to solve this in my head right now,
huh,
because I really feel that is the genre that I will excel in.
right.
Because I have this
Yeah.
weird, wicked imagination with horror, you know. And like for example, I saw I don't know if you've seen Black Mirror, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I have
Few
yeah,
episodes of
I
that.
have
Yeah.
these weird stories. Like for example, I had this one story which was, and I'll reveal it. I have no problems because it's no issue with that. Where sometimes you walk into a room, Raji, and you meet a person, and there is something about that person which you really like, right?
Yeah.
So, for
Yeah.
example, you get into this party, and there's this guy who picks up a guitar and just
Right.
starts playing his tunes and
Right.
singing, and he just does it so naturally. And
Yeah.
the rest of us or the rest of the people in the room are like, "How did he do it?" Right?
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
have this story where this guy who's an extremely insecure human being, right, who has no skill,
Huh.
suddenly gets this power of being able to borrow a skill from one person every day.
Okay.
Okay, so he actually walks into a room and he meets you, right? And
Right.
he feels that Raji का ये जबरदस्त writing style है. मेरे को एक दिन के लिए वो writing style I'm going to borrow. So you lose that skill for one day when he borrows it from you.
Wow.
Okay, and then this story goes on and on and on, and then he picks up a gift which he shouldn't have picked up. Okay,
Don't go into it now.
yeah. So
This is a story. Please do not.
yeah. So I'm saying that these are stories which I want to
Please
tell.
do not. Yeah.
Yeah, these are stories which are for me. There's this one beautiful story. I don't remember the writer now. He meets this woman in a bar. Okay,
Huh.
uh, falls madly in love with her. Uh, uh, Takes her home, makes
Huh.
love with her. Okay,
Uh-huh.
and the next morning, she's given birth. She has a child next to. She has a child next to her.
This is a story that's already been written.
Yeah, it's been written. I don't remember the writer now. And it's in
Okay.
that 24-hour cycle, the woman who he's met the previous night has become a mother in the morning. The child grows up by the next night, and he actually impregnates his own child the next night. Okay,
Oh,
now I'm saying that it's bizarre. It's bizarre as a story. Okay, but when you read it, you realize that is what horror does. Great horror writing does. It
yeah.
challenges you and takes you into spaces where of darkness, real darkness, right? When you read it,
Yes.
you think, what the hell is happening here?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
won't tell you the twist because if somebody is reading this, they will unfortunately spoil
I
it.
know. Spoilers.
But when you read that last line in that story, everything what you read comes back to you to say that, oh man, how did
Oh
I
my
not
God.
see this coming? How did I not see this coming?
Oh my
It's
God. It's this. This is enough to
I,
kind of.
I'll send you that link.
The previous one that you mentioned about
My,
the position, that is yours, right?
yeah,
That's a good thing I stopped you from going
so I'm
further.
saying this is something which is intimidating me where it should come naturally.
Yeah.
But let's see. Hopefully, I'll
I
meet.
think
I'll
that
meet the
is your
booth tonight, and I'll get into my booth car literally.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Raji,
Yeah.
that's been a wow. It's been 2 hours, man.
Yes, yes,
Thought this would
Shanti.
be like
We'll
Adha
have to
Ghanta.
do we'll have to do a series.
We have to do an
Divide it into a series and put
I
it
know.
out.
No, but it's
But
been
it was
great.
so wonderful talking to you, Shanti.
Absolutely, it's been a wonderful,
I
wonderful.
really loved listening to what you had to say.
Same here,
And
ditto.
I liked the way you explained the process and how not the process, but what makes you the kind of writer you are. I think I'm getting a better hold of it because I've always been intrigued by that. But I loved your grandmom. I loved your grandmom.
So I'm honest. I've never been intrigued by your writing because I've been blown by it. The intrigue level went a long time ago. What is there's no intrigue in the sense that I am actually looking forward to where you're going next.
Thank you.
So I know, and I know exactly where you are. Oddly enough, I know you as a writer more than I know myself as a writer. It's a very odd way to say this. I can actually, after reading all your Instagram posts, I have a very, very deep understanding कि यार ये लड़की क्या है, ये औरत क्या है.
Thank you,
And
Shanti.
I just feel like sometimes, I wish we as writers individually could tell each other that this is what you need to do. We have to push ourselves into out of our own comfort zones and into zones where we should be going as writers. And I think that's the reason I want to have this conversation, because I think this is the reason we don't converse as writers,
As right.
And today, like I've come out feeling that right. I must do, like you said, legacy. Whatever it is,
There are two things about you before we end, before we stop this. I have to tell you this thing that you have on Instagram of the visual and the story.
Correct.
I think it's groundbreaking format, and I'm not trying to make it bigger than what it is, but I genuinely think it could lead you into something which I haven't seen that. I really haven't come across something that is said with that kind of brevity, with such economy of words. You can have a visual story, but the way one doesn't exist without the other. I like that. One doesn't exist without the other, and the story is just 12 words, but it's like getting the whole visual together. What you didn't see in that visual is coming together in these words. And I think that is beautiful. So please do something with that.
Definitely, that's something.
And horror. I think more than cricket, more than anything, I think your zone is horror. The way you tend to get into the depth of things, that is something that you have. You are very, like you said, you are either black or white. Right? You're a very extreme person.
Very much.
So that kind of personality lends itself to going deep down into the dark side.
True. Yeah. Thank you, Raji, for that. And I wish you the best for Anuradha. I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing it. I'm not in live.
I'm hoping to see it.
You should be going to Toronto, though. You should have just asked.
I know people have been telling me, but I know what you mean. I really would love to.
For that, wish you the best for the second book whenever it comes. The second film, rather, whenever it comes in. Second book comes in, I'll be happy.
I know you. I know.
But I'd like to just leave you with one last word before we switch off. That I really think the best years of our writing are still to come for us.
Yes. Both of us.
I think we've not even scratched at the surface.
We have.
I think that is where I still have that joy. I think we've underperformed, both of us.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for saying that.
I needed this reality check because, and I think that is the reason why we need to go on.
Yeah.
I don't think 10% भी हुआ है अपना journey.
And
I'm speaking for both of us. So
we have it.
Looking forward to both those roads building, and all the best, Raji. Thank you so much for your time.
So much.
I love this conversation. So
I'll
put this out on. I'll edit it and put it out on YouTube very soon.
Thank you so much. I'm going to look forward to that. But I loved this.
So it was
Thank you.
worth the wait.
Bye.
Worth the wait. Thank you.
Definitely,
चलो चलो
definitely.
get to your Saturday Sunday. Enjoy.
ठीक है, you
हो
too.
गया काम हो गया
Bye,
काम हो गया. Bye. Bye. Yes, I know.
bye.
Yes, yeah. Bye. Bye.
Take care.